Welcome to my parlor. Hi, I'm Priscilla Andrews with Prairie Parlor. Today I'm going to show you how to make colored beads with layering clay and cutting with your exacto knife. I made my necklace using this technique, these beads. And here are some that you're going to see in the video. You want to know how to do that? Well, I'm going to show you. So sharpen up your exacto knives, get your clay out, and let's get started. Before we get started, I want to show you a few things. This is kind of where we're going, and this is what we're going to be doing. Well, something similar. This technique is a little more advanced than what you're going to see today, but that's for future work. What we're going to work on today is the base to make something like this. So what I have here is a few examples. These are some beads that I made left over from other projects that use the technique that we're going to be using today. So that's where we're headed. Let me tell you how to get there. The first thing I do when I make more than one bead in this way is I cut out my clay that's going to be the center of the bead into exact same sizes. So the first thing you need to do is figure out what color you want to be the color that shows. When I talk about the color that shows, here's what you need to keep in mind. Depending on how you end up carving this, whether you carve it a lot or just a little bit, and I'll show you that later, you need to think about the two main colors that you're going to have. The one is going to be the final color on the outside of the bead, and the other main color is going to be the color of the ball on the inside of the bead. To start with, I am going to make a pink and black, just two color bead. So I have my pink right here. And then what I do is I have my black on this sheet here. We're going to use that color later. And what this is I run the clay through my pasta machine until I get to the number 6 setting. If you use anything less than a number 6 setting, it is not going to work, and you're going to have to cut real deep to get those colors to show. So I take a ball and I take my strip cut on a number 6 setting, and what I have found works best for me to cover these, because you cannot get anything overlapping, and I'll talk about that more later too. But what works best for me is this oval cutter. Depending on the size of the ball, this should be a good size for this, or I go to a larger size. So I take the oval cutter and I'm going to cut 4 ovals out. And you will see how that works. I take the first oval and just put it anywhere on the ball that you have. Take the second oval and I'm going to just start at the bottom and join it. Do not overlap it, because when you overlap it, what happens is you try to make your cut, and instead of getting a nice clean round cut, you're going to get a cut that has some jagged streaks in it. Join the seam on one side, and then I take and gently lay this down up to the seam that we have there. Then I take my exacto knife and I am going to cut right where that seam is. And it works better if you roll your exacto knife rather than slice it like this, because it'll just drag this really thin strip of black. Now the nice part about using the ovals, if you have an open space, it kind of already has a natural curve to it. And what I did is I cut out the joining place there, and look at that. Fits in there real good. And I need a little triangle on the bottom. Let's see if I cut that out the right size. By golly, pretty dang good. Now, if you have just a few spots open like this, I'm not going to worry about it, because when you start cutting to make the colors show, you can just cut on those spaces. Because what we're going to do next now is put a little bit of pressure on this when I'm rolling, because I really want those layers, that second layer, to be stuck to the ball. And here comes the magic part. I take my exacto knife. And now I'm just going to start cutting. You have to cut a little deep to get that color. And we're going to save that. You'll see why. I also try to make my cuts in different directions so that it doesn't look like a like a striped pincushion or something, because your exacto knife tends to cut things, as you noticed, at not round. Now, to get rid of all those seams, you're just gonna roll it real good. Now, if you absolutely positively want a round one, you can do that. It's gonna take you some practice, but you can do it by circling the bead like I did. And see, we must have gotten some overlap there, because that's what happens, is you don't get a nice clean cut like that. It looks like I've done a pretty good job of cutting most of the areas off that I wanted. This is the two-color effect. Now you also have another choice here. You can either leave it kind of organic looking by leaving those flat areas on it, or if you want, you can roll it into a smooth ball so that the effects are blended and you've got a smooth surface. It doesn't have to be a ball. I have made some into squares, and I have made them into tube shape with a little twist. And those are some options I'll show you a little bit more about later. But that's your choice here. Now, the little perk of saving all those little pieces is you can now make another bead, a matching bead. If you choose to keep this organic, that's not going to work with this. But you can either make a matching bead by just taking these cuts and putting them on there and then rolling it out. And then you have two beads, if you make it a smooth ball, that actually match each other. So the other option, which is kind of fun, is to make an easy tricolor bead. I'm going to take this dark turquoise, and I'm going to put some pink with black edges on it. But I'm just going to make this, and then I'll come back and show you what it looks like all rolled out. I'm liking that. That's kind of cute. Those colors. There you go. That is the two-colored ball. Now, let's do a ball with 3 colors that we're going to cut out of. Sometimes you have to make a pretty good decision on what colors you're going to use, because the contrasting color, the most contrasting color, should always be the first layer on top of your round bead, your inside layer. So what I'd like is to have gold as my first layer, and then the top layer is going to be turquoise, so that brown shows when I cut. So let's do the same thing again. And this is a little bit bigger bead than the last one I made, so I'm going to be cutting out 5 of these instead of 4. Now for the third layer, we're going to go ahead and lay that down exactly like we did the gold layer. And let's cut this and see what brown inside of gold, inside of turquoise, is going to look like. Well, could be interesting. You don't have to cut all the way around if you want. On this one, I'm going to make, I made one on top, and I'm just going to make some striped ones coming down on one side. But there's our brown with gold edges bead. I'm going to go ahead and roll it. And there we have a bead. And I could have cut those better, but you get the idea. And now, as before, you have a bunch of little colors to use on another bead. And you could actually use it on a different color. Like, let's say we decided to go on this red, and then you would have a 4-color bead. Oh, that is cool. Look at it from the top. I don't know if I would even round that one out if you wanted to. Huh. I like that. I have one more trick to show you that you can do with these beads. This is a 2-layer bead. There is red on the inside, and then a layer of black and a layer of gold. And what I did is I went around here and I cut V's like that. So I had some V's and flicked them out. And now I have this bead that just looks like crap. Anyway, it won't for long, because if you like to make lentil beads, this pattern makes gorgeous lentil beads. Here's a bead that was made out of the same color pattern as this. So what I'm going to do for you, yes, I am going to make a lentil bead out of this. So should we see what happens? As lentil beads go, I didn't make a very good one, but it still turned out kind of cool. So here's just another interesting thing that you can do with this style of beading. I think, or I hope, you have a pretty good overview of what we did in terms of carving clay for an interesting effect in your beads. Here's the baked beads, the finished products of some other colors that I showed you before. And I hope you have learned something new today, and I hope you find it beneficial to your path to finding what you do or want to do.